In 2005, a group of investors from 3 of the world's most powerful financial firms sat down to decide the future of Toys R Us. They weren't there to kill one of America's most iconic brands. They were there to make a profit. But the decision they made that day, a classic Wall Street maneuver, would set off a 13-year countdown to catastrophe. It would lead to the closure of over 800 stores and the loss of 33,000 jobs. This isn't the story you've heard about Amazon and big box stores. This is a story of how a deal designed to make a fortune created a financial trap that guaranteed the company's collapse from the inside out.
I don't want to grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kid. They got a million toys at Toys R Us that I can play with.
Before it became a Wall Street casualty, Toys R Us was a revolutionary idea. It came from the mind of one man, Charles Lazarus, who returned from World War II with a simple observation. All his fellow soldiers talked about was going home and starting families.
Everybody I met in service said they were going to go home and get married and have children.
He saw the coming baby boom before almost anyone else, and he knew all those new families would need stuff for their kids. So in 1948, he opened a small shop in Washington, D.C. called Children's Bargain Town, selling baby furniture out of his father's bicycle repair shop. It was practical business. But as those babies grew into children, Lazarus noticed something else. Parents kept coming back, asking for toys. In 1957, Lazarus made the move that would change American retail forever. He opened his first store dedicated only to toys, and he called it Toys R Us. He even designed a logo with a backward R to look like a kid wrote it. But the real genius wasn't the name, it was the model. Lazarus stole an idea from the supermarkets that were popping up everywhere. Before him, toys were scattered across department stores and tiny shops. You had to hunt for them. Lazarus decided to put everything under one massive roof, and he created the toy supermarket. For the first time, kids could walk into a space that felt like it was made just for them. The aisles stretched for what felt like miles, stacked to the ceiling with more toys than they could ever imagine. It was a sensory overload of color and pure joy. This wasn't just shopping, it was an event. It was a destination. And the company didn't just sell toys, it shaped culture. Jeffrey the Giraffe became an icon. The jingle, "I don't want to grow up, I'm a Toys R Us kid," was an anthem for a generation. It was more than just an ad. It embedded the brand into the fabric of American childhood. Toys R Us was where fans became phenomena. Star Wars figures, Cabbage Patch Kids, the Nintendo Entertainment System, these weren't just products, they were a cultural movement, and Toys R Us was their ground zero. By the mid-1990s, Toys R Us wasn't just a company, it was a colossus, controlling a full 25% of the entire US toy market. It opened nearly 1,500 stores across the globe and generated billions in sales. The dominance was so complete that other retailers had basically given up trying to compete on toys. The company's power came from its incredible scale. It bought toys in such huge volumes that it could demand better prices and exclusive products from companies like Hasbro and Mattel. If you were a toy maker, you needed to be in Toys R Us. It was the gatekeeper of the industry. This position felt permanent. An institution like that can't just disappear, right? Well, even at its peak, the ground was starting to shift. In 1998, a tectonic event happened in retail. Walmart surpassed Toys R Us as the #1 toy seller in the United States. It wasn't because Walmart had better toys or a more magical store. It was because Walmart and other big box stores like Target had a totally different game plan. They used toys as a loss leader. They could sell the most popular toys at razor-thin margins, or even at a loss, just to keep parents in the door. They knew that once a family was inside to buy a Barbie, they'd also grab groceries, clothes, and electronics, things with much higher profit margins. Toys R Us couldn't even play that game. For them, toys weren't the bait, they were the whole business. Every dollar of profit had to come from the toys themselves, and suddenly, that special trip to a toy wonderland was being replaced by the convenience of a one-stop shop. Then came the internet, a threat the company saw coming but completely misunderstood. Toys R Us launched a website in 1998, but it was clumsy, half-hearted effort. The company's DNA was all about a physical store experience. Selling toys through a screen felt alien, and this weakness turned into a full-blown catastrophe during the 1999 Christmas season. When the website buckled under pressure of online orders, failing to deliver thousands of gifts in time for the holiday, the public backlash was fierce. Shaken by this disaster, the company made a decision that was, in hindsight, catastrophic. In 2000, it signed a 10-year exclusive deal with a rising online bookseller, and it was looking to expand. Toys R Us agreed to pay Amazon around $50 million a year to become its exclusive toy seller online. And in effect, Toys R Us had just outsourced its entire e-commerce future to the one company perfectly positioned to destroy it. For a decade, every time you bought a toy on Amazon, you were really buying it from Toys R Us. But in the process, Amazon was learning. It was studying the toy business, what sold, when it sold, and how to ship it. Toys R Us was literally paying its future executioner to learn the trade. And when the contract ended, Amazon didn't need to renew it. It had spent 10 years using its competitors' money to build a world-class logistics network and gather priceless data in the toy market. By the early 2000s, Toys R Us was trapped. Its stores were being undercut by Walmart, and its online future had been handed to Amazon. The company was still huge and profitable, but the pressure was mounting, and investors were getting impatient. The stage was set for the deal that would seal its fate. In 2005, three of Wall Street's biggest private equity firms, Bain Capital, Colbert Kravis Roberts, also known as KKR, and Vornado Realty Trust, came forward with a plan. They saw a company that was still generating billions in revenue but was undervalued by the market. Their solution was a classic from the private equity playbook, a leveraged buyout, or an LBO. Here's how an LBO works. Imagine you want to buy $1 million company. Instead of using your own money, you put down a small fraction, let's say $100,000, and borrow the other $900,000. But here's the kicker, that debt doesn't go on you. It goes directly onto the companies you just bought. The company itself is now on the hook for paying back the loan that was used to purchase it. For investors, the logic is intoxicating. If the company can pay off the debt, any profit left over is a massive return on your small initial investment. The three firms acquired Toys R Us for $6.6 billion, but of that amount, they only put in $1.3 billion of their own money, loading the company with over $5 billion in new debt. In that conference room, no one thought that they were killing Toys R Us. They thought they were optimizing it, using financial engineering to extract value. But that one decision completely rewired the company's purpose. Before the deal, the goal of Toys R Us was to sell toys and build a brand. And after the deal, the company had a new all-consuming prime directive: generate enough cash to service its mountain of debt. The weight of the LBO was immediate and crushing. Toys R Us was now saddled with interest payments of roughly $400 million every year. That's over $1 million a day that wasn't being reinvested into the business. It was going straight to the banks. Think about what that money could have done. It could have been used to remodel the aging, tired stores. It could have funded a state-of-the-art e-commerce platform to actually compete with Amazon, and it could have paid for better employee training or call-in-store experiences. Instead, it just vanished, servicing a debt that was created not to improve the company, but to buy it. This kicked off a slow, agonizing death spiral. While Amazon was pouring billions into fulfillment centers and its user experience, Toys R Us was forced into permanent austerity. The carpets got worn, the shelves looked messy, and the once magical atmosphere started to feel dated and depressing. The company built on creating a wonderful land for kids, and that now felt neglected. Customers noticed. They still had nostalgia for the brand, but the actual shopping experience was a letdown. The website was still clunky, items were often out of stock, and it just became easier, cheaper, and more reliable to buy from Amazon or grab a toy during the weekly grocery run at Target. The company tried to fight back. It bought the iconic brand FAO Shaw's and opened the spectacular flagship store in Times Square with a 60-foot indoor Ferris wheel. But these were cosmetic fixes for a deep structural rot. The core problem didn't change. The company was financially handcuffed. It was trying to compete in the brutal 21st century retail landscape while dragging a 10-ton anchor. The end came slowly, then all at once. By 2010, the company was so desperate to escape its debt trap, it tried to go public again through an IPO. But the timing was terrible. The market was skittish after the 2008 financial crisis, and the company's sluggish sales numbers weren't convincing. The IPO was pulled. That failure was a point of no return. With no way to lower its debt, the company just kept bleeding. For years, it limped along, a zombie retailer haunted by its former glory. The private equity firms, which usually exit an investment in 5 to 7 years, were stuck. The company was too burdened to sell and too weak to fix. By 2017, the situation was untenable. Holiday sales were a disaster. Spooked by the company's finances, toy suppliers started demanding stricter payment terms, cutting off the credit that is the lifeblood of any retailer. And in September 2017, Toys R Us filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The initial hope was to restructure and emerge as a smaller, healthier company, but it was too late. In March 2018, the announcement came. Toys R Us would be liquidating its US operations. All of its remaining US stores would close. 33,000 employees were about to lose their jobs. The empire was gone.
Toys R Us is expected to begin the process of liquidation today. The company informed employees that they likely will close or sell all of the remaining 800 stores across the country. If that happens, about 33,000 people will lose their jobs.
In a tragic final note, the company's visionary founder, Charles Lazarus, passed away at age 94, just 1 week after the liquidation of his life's work was announced. The story of Toys R Us is a powerful reminder of how quickly a beloved institution can vanish. For millions, the memory of walking through those aisles is a core part of their childhood. What's your most vivid memory of Toys R Us? Share it in the comments below. And if you find these deep dives into business history valuable, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next story. After the 2018 liquidation, Toys R Us didn't completely disappear. It became a ghost, a brand name without a body. The name, the logo, and Jeffrey the Giraffe were passed between different owners. A couple of small, ill-fated attempts to open new stores fizzled out quickly. Then, in 2021, a brand management firm called WHP Global acquired a controlling stake. Their strategy was different. Instead of rebuilding a retail empire from scratch, they licensed a powerful brand name. This led to a major partnership with Macy's, which began opening Toys R Us shopping shops inside hundreds of its department stores in 2022. The move gave the brand a lifeline and a big boost to Macy's toy sales. Now, the brand is attempting a comeback. WHP Global announced plans to open new flagship stores in major US cities, as well as smaller shops in airports and on cruise ships. In late 2025, several of these new flagship locations began opening in states like Illinois, California, and Maryland. But even as the American brand charts a new course, its Canadian division, which was sold off separately and survived the bankruptcy, has recently faced its own major financial troubles, including lawsuits from landlords and suppliers over unpaid bills. It's a nostalgic echo in a world now dominated by Amazon and Walmart. It's easy to say that Amazon killed Toys R Us. It's a simple narrative, but it's not the whole truth. The real story is more complex and, frankly, more damning. Amazon and Walmart were absolutely the external threat, changing the rules of retail and putting immense pressure on the old guard. But Toys R Us might have survived. It could have adapted, invested, and fought back. The company was prevented from doing so not by incompetence, but by a decision made in the Wall Street boardroom. The 2005 leveraged buyout was a financial tool that acted like a poison pill. It loaded a company facing the biggest disruption in its history with a crippling, inflexible burden. Debt forces a business to play defense when it needs to play offense. It forces a company to prioritize servicing loans over investing in its own future. The private equity firms didn't set out with the goal of destroying Toys R Us. They were just playing the game of modern finance, a game that often prioritizes extracting cash over long-term sustainable growth. The death of Toys R Us wasn't just a business failure, it was a tragedy of misaligned incentives. It's a story of what happens when a company's financial engineering becomes more important than the customer it serves. And it's a lesson that the most dangerous threats often come not from the enemy you can see, but from the trap you set for yourself.